right. Well, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, February 8th, 2022 Middlesex County Council. And it looks like we have everyone here. I don't see anybody missing. Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting to order and just take time just to have a few remarks. Not long. Throughout the month of January, each municipality hosted a number of vaccination clinics that provided our residents a chance to access vaccines close to home. Many thanks to the partnership of our emergency services, the health unit, the SERVE volunteers, and our host municipalities. By the end of January, 3,662 vaccines had been administered. Again, please encourage anyone who is eligible to have a vaccine to have one. Although the latest numbers are encouraging, the only way we will beat this is by following the guidelines provided by our health unit. We can't let this pandemic distract us, though, from our Canadian athletes' performances in the Winter Olympics. There's been some interesting reports coming from the games, and again, the athletes who will be successful are the ones who don't get distracted and keep their goals in mind. And I think we can all relate to this. All right, so now I'm going to ask for any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Don't see anybody waving their hand at me, so we're going to move on now to business arising from the minutes. Seeing none. The minutes. So I have that the minutes of January 11th be approved as presented, and that council adopt the recommendations of the committee of whole as set out in the minutes of January 11th. Looking for a mover. Councillor Mayhew, seconded by Councillor Elliott. And anybody against that? Can't see anybody, so moved. Seeing no deputations, do we have any inquiries of notice of motion? Seeing none, no reports. And now we're going to move into new business. And this is the Strathmore Library and Library Administration lease. And this would be our Director of Library Service, Lindsay Brock. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And through you to council, it's a fairly straightforward report that's before you. So referring to updated leases for the Strathmore Library and Library Administration Office. So you'll remember in 2021, we completed construction projects at both of those facilities. And so in conjunction with those projects, the expired lease agreements were revised to reflect the new spaces, as well as agreed upon terms and conditions. You'll see within the report, it just breaks down the square footage of those spaces and how our lease rate is set based on the variable lease rate policy that the county holds, which is adjusted each year based on CPI. And you'll see a recommendation there before you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Do we have any questions for Lindsay? Nope, seeing none. Just want to take the time, though, to thank Lindsay for your recommendations for the library conference. I was able to go into some of the recommendations that you gave me, and it was quite an interesting time. In fact, I've got one podcast I'll be listening to coming out of that for a while, so thanks again. All right, we have a mover for this recommendation, Councillor DeVete, seconded by Councillor Richards. Anyone against this? Seeing none, so moved. And moving on to the truck purchase, a two-wheel drive half-ton pickup truck, T31, and that would be Mr. Trainee's report. So you're ready whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And this report may seem familiar to council. It's very similar to the report we heard at the last council meeting. Our county staff have been searching high and low for supply of off-the-line pickup trucks, and we were able to secure a reservation on a pickup truck from McNaughton Dodge Chrysler for $51,500 plus HST. Very similar to last month. We're still struggling to find. Now, this would be the two foreman's trucks that have been replaced that were both a year overdue for replacement. And we're still in the hunt for two crew cabs which are finding very tricky and difficult for us to find. But there will be another report coming to council as soon as we have an ability to track down those vehicles for our fleet. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the report.
Okay, council, any questions for Mr. Trainey's report? Anybody have any used pickup trucks they want to sell the county? Okay, seeing none. I'd like a mover for this. Councillor Vanderheyden, seconded by Councillor Mayhew. Anyone against this? Oh, so moved. Thank you. Establishment of a community paramedicine reserve account, and that would be Chief Roberts. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and through you to members of council. So the report that's before you today is seeking approval for the establishment of a community paramedicine reserve account. So a bit of background, as you know, community paramedicine has been established for many years and primarily has received its funding through the Ministry of Health. Several years ago, as part of support, vehicles were purchased from Middlesex Law and Paramedic Service as used units to better support community paramedicine. And most recently, with the establishment of the Ministry of Long-Term Care funding envelope, which is upwards of $6 million over the next 3 years, it provided the opportunity for community paramedicine to purchase 4 brand new vehicles. So obviously a different funding pot. As a result, those vehicles that were on, I guess, temporary use by community paramedicine were resold or about to be resold back to Middlesex Law and Paramedic Service. And in doing so, the proceeds from that would be put in a reserve account under community paramedicine and under the county treasury. So this report is requesting for the establishment of that. Certainly any withdrawal of that account would also follow established county procedures and policies as well. So the recommendation, Madam Warden, is there before council, and happy to address any questions on this.
Are there any questions regarding this report? Councillor Vanderheyden?
No, I just want to speak in favor of the report. I think we do this with a number of different reserves in the county, the fleet reserve. I know we do it in Strathmore Caradoc when we try to keep the payments going on a loan of a vehicle that's outdated, so that when we actually need a new vehicle, the money's there and we don't have to play up and down with our tax rates. So I think it's a great move and a good opportunity to build on, again, that stability issue. So thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? All right, so looking for a mover then to accept this report. Councillor Burkhart-Jessen, seconded by Councillor Cornelissen. And anyone against this? Seeing none, so moved. Now we have our telecommunications municipal access agreement, ExploreNet, and that report being from our barrister and solicitor, Wayne Mager. Welcome. I see you on the screen somewhere. There you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden, and through you to council. ExploreNet is a successful bidder of a portion of the SWIFT project for fiber installation in Middlesex County, and in particular, it's in Thames Center. And ExploreNet is agreeable to the form of the county blanket municipal access agreement for both county roads and as adapted for Thames Center in connection with local roads involved in the project. And that form provides access to road allowances subject to the approval of engineering drawings, work permits, and the taking of necessary security by municipal authorities. The blanket agreement has focused on keeping fees lower than other municipalities while ensuring that municipal costs and risks are covered for the purpose of preventing taxpayer losses and preventing any subsidization beyond what council has approved already for the SWIFT project. And with the agreement being adapted and endorsed in connection with projects on local roads in Thames Center on this project, Middlesex Center and Southwest Middlesex and other projects, it's provided for administrative ease and efficiency across in project administration for these types of build outs. And the county form of agreement adopted in early 21, it's now been agreed to by all the various successful proponents of the SWIFT fiber installation project and all other private telecoms working with the county as well, both small ones and large ones. In terms of furthering the county's strategic goals, the project provides connections through infrastructure, cultivates Middlesex community vitality, and strengthens our economy. And the county really does appreciate telecoms acting in Middlesex County. We support them as community contributors, and we look forward to the build out of other fiber initiatives. So the recommendation to council is for the ExploreNet Municipal Access Agreement to be approved and endorsed.
Okay. Always good news when we have more and more broadband going, especially in our area. It's underserviced. But any questions or comments regarding this? No, seeing none. All right, then looking for a mover. Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor DeVete. Anyone against this? Seeing none, so carried. Thank you. And now we're moving on to the FCM partnerships for municipal innovation, women in local leadership. Apparently I'm giving a report on this. But anyway, it's a great opportunity. And again, we have to thank FCM for allowing these opportunities to be presented to us. The Women's Caucus did do an interview with the group that were going through the applications, and we were successful. It is an exciting one. We've been paired, we're going to be paired with somebody else in Canada, but as well, we're reaching out to women in Cambodia is the place that we've been picked to work with. And I know that we've got some great staff support with Cindy Howard and Marcy. You know that that's something that's very interesting for them as well. So we're really looking forward to getting started with this. It's fairly new to us. We just found the approval this week, and we're looking forward to get going on this. And if there's any questions, I can try and answer, although it's all very new at the moment. So yes, Councillor Vanderheyden.
In all transparency, I know my name is on the letter that you received, but I wasn't on the process to connect with us, just so you know. But I'm really happy.
Yeah, we are too, and I did drop your name in the interview, so
Somebody got along the way. That's nice. I think this is a great opportunity, and as you know, our municipality was involved with the South Africa delegation, and we did that for a couple of 3 years or 4 years was the timeline. And it was absolutely a fantastic opportunity for us to learn from another country, and from this to learn from them to learn from us. And I think it's whenever we have an opportunity to give of ourselves to other people, I think it's positive. And I think this is a great opportunity for the Women's Caucus. So I'm behind this 100%.
Thank you. And I must say, it wouldn't have been able to feel confident about this if we didn't have that great staff support, because I think that's going to be a real key part of this. So thanks to Marcy and Cindy for your positivity and your willingness to take a project on with us. Is there any questions regarding this? So we do have a motion, and that is council approve the participation in the project, and that myself and Councillor Kelly Elliott be assigned as the elected official champions of the project for the remainder of the term of council, and that Cindy Howard be assigned as the staff lead on the project. So can I have a mover for this, please? Councillor DeVete, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Anyone against it? Seeing none, so moved. Thank you. Councillors' comments, any business? Oh, look I see a hand. Go ahead, Adrian.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I thought I'd share with council that we finally did manage to get a bit of an investment from LMCH in some of our units. The 20 units on Penny Lane will be benefiting from an open kitchen redesign, as well as a fire denunciator in Newberry. While it's not a large amount, it is at least some investment in the county.
That's very good news, and I want to thank you for bringing that forward. I think, you know, every small step is a step forward, and
Yeah.
And again, your work is very valuable on that, Councillor Corneliuson, and we're lucky that we have you as a champion for this. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other councillors' comments? Oh, Councillor Elliott.
Yes, and thank you through the warden. Last week, as all of you know, we hosted Michael Landsberg for 2 events to speak about mental health in our community. One event was specifically directed towards youth, and the second evening event was directed specifically to parents. It was very well attended, and everyone I've talked to, we've had positive results coming from that, and I've shared that with Michael as well. But I did want to take the time to thank Chris Bailey, who was part of the planning on putting this all together as well, was there for both events, doing all the tech support and behind the scenes. So I just wanted to take the time to thank him for all the work he did on putting this all together.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for everyone that was involved. It was a great night, and hopefully something that we can keep moving on. I did see a note in the councillor's comments from Councillor Vanderheyden regarding one of her Mount Bridges residents. If you want to maybe say a few words about that, the time is now.
Well, thank you. Regarding your opening remarks about the Olympics, we're very excited at Mount Bridges because Kristen Banowski and her partner will be competing in the 2 women bobsled race. And I believe it's about 7 o'clock in the morning on Thursday and 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday. We have, I have my t-shirt, I'm all ready to go. We actually took a Strathmore Caradoc flag, got all kinds of people to sign it. I went to the Legion with her parents and brother and a couple of other members, and we put it up on the wall, and we did video recordings to cheer her on because of course nobody can be with her there. So we've done everything we can just to try to, and I know anybody that's going to the Legion this week, they're signing it as well. And they actually went to a couple of outside places and got people to do some recordings because it's, you know, the very fact that she's there is already like 100% worth cheering for, but the fact that she's actually going to be going down that, I don't even know what you call that hill, but that ice tunnel at warp speed is just incredible to me. And we're really proud of her and really excited to be watching and cheer her on. So thank you, Madam Warden.
Thank you. And yeah, and I would encourage anybody to watch those athletes. We can support them that way at least because we can't be there. So great. Any other comments before we move on? Seeing none. Going on to bylaws. I have bylaw 7147 to authorize the signing of the Library Administration Office lease, 7148 signing of the Strathroy Library lease, 7149 a bylaw to authorize the signing of a telecommunications agreement with Explorenet Communications, 7150 a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of February 8th, 2022 meeting of council. So looking for a mover for the first and second readings. Councillor Ropp, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Anyone against it? So that's carried. And now for the third and final reading, looking for a mover. Councillor DeVitt, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Anyone against that? Seeing none, so that's carried. All right, so now we're going to move into the committee of the whole at 1:18 p.m. Can I have a mover to move into that, please? Councillor Mayhew, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Anyone against moving forward? Seeing none, carried. All right, and I think we're a little early for, oh, like I see Councillor Vanderheyden. Councillor Vanderheyden, did you want to say something?
Since we're a little bit early, I was going to say something under comments by members, but you looked down and didn't see me. So maybe
sorry,
I could throw that in here since we have a little time. I just wanted to let council know that the Women's Caucus met at Roma with 5 or 6 different ministers, and it went really, really well. And this focused on the issues that women in the county have been telling us and things that we know are gaps in the county. So it was really a great opportunity. So Councillor Elliott set most of this up with the different ministers and with the help of, I think it was Marcy and Chris did some work with the IT, and we all got together with Allison and Ina and Kathy. And I think it was really well received, the fact that we as a group came to fight the issues and lobby and advocate for the issues that the women in the county are facing. And I say women, but it's not just women, because anything that affects the family affects the whole family. And if you can't get healthcare, or you can't get childcare, or you can't get the things that the community needs, then it affects all of us. So I wanted to thank the Women's Caucus for getting together and doing this, because I think it's really important that we have that opportunity to lobby and advocate on the issues that really affect the citizens that we represent. And it was a great opportunity for us to get together and do that. And I really appreciated the work that everybody did. So I just wanted to thank everyone and just highlight that to the rest of council so they knew what we were doing.
Thank you. And you know what, you're right, Councillor Van Hayden. It does say Women's Caucus, but these issues are not just for women, they're for everyone involved in the county. So it's great. I know that this hearing for the woodlot is scheduled for 2 o'clock, but I know we can't do it because the person's not here until 2 o'clock. We can't do it for 2 o'clock. So let's maybe move on to something else. And I don't need a mover for that, Marcy. We can just move on. Okay. So looking at 11A 2, and that is the Swift Ballymote project and switch building land acquisition, Quadro request to waive land dedication. And I think I see on my screen, John DeHere is here, and Ben Waghorn I see on my screen. And is Jason coming today, or is it just the 2 gentlemen that I have?
I believe Jason is there as well.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look.
He's down at the bottom of your screen, Allison.
Okay, well, actually, he's on the second page of my screen. So he's gotten to the end of the line. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Now that I know that you're all here, and whenever you are ready, John, are you speaking or you're all speaking?
I think I will likely do most of the speaking, but
Okay.
I always encourage questions. And if people have questions for either John or Jason, John's the general manager of Quadro, Jason's the construction manager. And I practice at Waghorn, Stevens, and St. Mary's and help them out on a lot of their projects. So the reason that we're here today is likely, I expect it's a unique request of council. And we're looking for a couple of things from council. One is we're looking to have council waive the requirement for the dedication of the 3 meters across the remainder property of belonging to the seller, Armitage. We're fine with the 3 meters on the property that we wish to acquire, but the 3 meter dedication could very well be or is a deal breaker as far as the current landowners is concerned. The second thing, just whether there's any concern from council perspective regarding the current setback requirement from the center of a county road, which is 38 meters. We would be looking for some accommodation on that, because 38 meters takes us almost to the back of the property that we intend to acquire, which would not give us any building envelope whatsoever. So I just wanted to make a few comments about each of those 2 requests for consideration. And I realize we're doing this a bit out of order, but speed is actually fairly paramount here. And I'm sure you never, ever hear that in any of your other applications. However, in this case, we had a nice lead in with some SWIFT discussion earlier, in that this is a SWIFT project, and part of the requirement to meet the SWIFT funding is that Quadro needs to have a building in place with infrastructure by the end of 2022. So we're trying to make sure that any application we bring forward for a severance and for any minor variances, whatnot, to the lower tier municipalities will not end up being stopped by anything that county council needs to have a say in. And it really comes down to, again, the landowner does not want to lose 3 meters across the entire frontage of his farm, but is willing to sell us the small portion of land that we require in order to be able to put up the building. So it comes down to basically a balancing of the desire to facilitate this infrastructure project, to allow Quadro to put a small building with very minimal size requirements as far as lot and building are concerned, in order to be able to go forward and provide for a significant amount of fiber availability in this area. So it's really, I realize that it is a fairly set policy that council does take the road widenings on these applications. But this is a very unique situation in that it is a public utility. It's not something that you're precedent setting really, unless you expect other utilities to be doing things like this in the future. But it is asking you to waive that requirement for the 3 meters across the balance of the property, so that we can go forward with this project in a timely manner and get the broadband, get the fiber out there to this community. The second part of the request, as I said, was just regarding the setback. And I believe the neighboring property that we would be right next to, I think that building's only about 12 meters off the center line of the county road. So I'm not sure that that's a huge ask, but we just wanted to have some guidance now and make sure that we didn't get all the way through the application process and then have county council come back and say, no, we can't, we're set on this. We can't do anything about that. The only other thing I'll mention, Jason and John did an excellent job of putting together that PowerPoint presentation that hopefully everybody had a chance to look through. I didn't use it today. I wanted to pull out the 2 or 3 things that we really wanted to actually talk about with you. It's a great resource, and they did a nice job in explaining what the application was for. They did mention that 8 Mile was an option. However, it's not a great option because the landowner really does not want to sell off 8 Mile. They want to sell the parcel that we've already gone ahead and got our severance sketch for, and had numerous conversations with planning to make sure that we are on the right path. The other issue is really just a timing issue. And I realize we kind of put all our eggs in this one basket, but to have to go back and do another severance sketch, the first one took months to do, and that was before the snow fell. If we had to wait for another severance sketch before we could start the application process and go through, we're going to be pretty tight and likely not able to meet the SWIFT requirements. So Quadro, with everything that's come together, has moved fairly quickly in order to make this work, but it's a pretty small window of opportunity to make it happen. So I'm going to stop talking because I could talk for lots and lots, and you get lots of things to do, but we would invite any questions that people have for myself, for John, or for Jason. Happy to discuss this further.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Waghorn. And I know that it's always an interesting discussion when we're trying to get broadband across the country, county. We'll start with the county and then we'll work our way across. Any questions, councillors, regarding this delegation? Joanne, or sorry, Councillor Vanderheyden, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, sure. Through the warden. Thank you. Well, a couple of things jumped right out at me. This is not unusual. We do get requests like this once in a while. It's but we have to take each one under consideration. And right off the top, I want to say I think Quadro does an amazing job in our county for connectivity. That's right off the top. This is not about anything that you do as an organization. This is about this particular request. So when I looked at this, I thought, okay, you want two different things. For me, the meters from the center of the road, that's not the stumbling block. That to me is okay. It is what it is. That to me, I could get past that one. The one that I worry about is the dedication and the rationale for a dedication, which we've talked about many, many times at County Council. And the reason that we have that is because the ramifications down the road if we don't do it when we have opportunity. So if we say, let's just not do this, and then something happens at that corner, it comes back at us. It doesn't come back at you, it comes back at us. And that is where I have an issue. if we don't do this now, down the road, if we have to do something with that corner, we're gonna have to expropriate. It's gonna cost us a pile of money. So there's another ramification. I can understand when I look at the pictures in the PowerPoint, why the owner rather you come off Highbury than come off of 8 Mile, because then you're in their backyard. I get that. But if they want to sell a property, maybe they just got to swallow one of these and say, let's go to the 8 Mile piece, if that makes sense. Or, and I suppose you've already looked at this, what are the options on the other 4 corners? Because I see there's a trucking operation on the one side or something. I can't see all of it from the picture. Is there another opportunity and still have that dedication happen? Sorry, that's a lot of questions and a lot of comments, but that's how my brain operates. It goes ping pong.
All right. Mr. Waghorn, did you want to respond to any of those comments or questions?
The only thing I will say is it is an expensive proposition to provide fiber, especially in rural communities. And so really it's, and I can totally appreciate Councillor Vanderheyden's comments about expropriation versus taking it now while you've got the opportunity. The difference, I guess, is that the opportunity now basically means either the landowner swallows it and basically donates that land, or they put a higher price on the land here, making it potentially financially not viable for Quadro. So to me, it comes down to a decision as how badly do we want this fiber to be installed throughout the county. Knowing that, yes, expropriation will be expensive, but the likelihood of expropriation being required for decades is pretty small. So you put off that decision for a long time. So a future investment by council in possibly expropriating land versus possibly making the project too expensive to go forward with now, that's kind of the decision. And it's not my decision. That's why we're here. It's for you learned folks to make your decision as to whether it does make sense or not. Quadro's not, they're not out to make millions and millions of dollars. They're out to provide a good service to a lot of people. And so they just don't have bottomless funds available to do this stuff. So that's my only comment. And again, I just go back to the timing issue. Even moving off of this project onto 8 Mile, it's going to make things very tight to meet all the requirements to make this project work. So I will stop.
Great. And Councillor Ropp.
Thank you. Through the warden, I'm in favor of seeing that broadband go in, but I would like to, Councillor Vanderheyden's point, I would like to ask if I can, our engineer, Chris, in the past, have we had similar type of requests, and have we granted those type of requests historically?
Through the warden to Councillor Ropp, thanks for the question. We do get these requests from time to time, and in recent history, the last time that this relief was granted was actually in Elsa Craig for the food bank property. And that was really related around the size of the parcel and the ability of the developer, the builder, to facilitate the size of the building they needed within that lot. So they had some restrictions with regards to actually being able to use at that location pretty much every square millimeter of that property to facilitate the construction of the building. It hasn't happened yet, but that was the plan. That's the last time council has allowed from my recollection, allowed a relief of this land dedication. And in that case, it was not a full relief. It was a relief, a reduction from a dedication of 5 meters down to 3 meters. And there's other factors there as well. Being in an urban area, there was some other things at work as well. So this case, again, this would just be, I think it has been explained very well by Quadro, and I believe the issues have been sort of well illustrated by Councillor Vanderheyden. The setback is not a concern for us. for the building itself. So we would not have a concern there for a request for reduction in the setback of the building itself. From our perspective, the concern here is with regards to the variance from the policy for the request for land dedication off the severed and retained parcels for this project.
Thank you.
I saw Councillor DeVitt, and did Councillor Burkhart Jessen have her hand up too? Okay, so I'll take Councillor DeVitt first and then Councillor Jessen.
Thank you, Warden. I think everyone's really aware of what our exposure is and our sort of responsibilities. I mean, I know timeframes are long and short. I think a lot of the work that we do around the horseshoe has to take into account what happens in the future. We can't just say whatever happens in 10 or 50 years is really not our problem. We need to need to make the best decisions possible for everyone. When I think about this, I keep thinking that we've had utilities and other big projects over time where surely we've run into this, or it's happening across the province maybe because of the amount of cable and broadband, fiber optic cable and that kind of utilities happening all across the province or different urban areas. Is this really the only way we can handle it? I keep thinking, does no one else have this issue, or how do they resolve it, or what agreements do people make, or what options do they explore? We've got three parties here basically that have a problem, and I can't believe we're the only ones that have these questions or run into this. Surely there are other buildings and or properties that are adjacent to or running across from or whatever that cause problems with respect to distances from center lines and so forth. I just keep wondering about that. Is there any other scenario where is there any kind of special kind of ruling that can be made for how, like, I'm not the expert here. I guess I look to the experience of both fiber optic cable companies and what they've run into and how they've resolved it, and the engineer who I know attends different kinds of industry and professional meetings, and just some advice and understanding how this could move forward. And I can't believe this is the only time we're going to run into it, because I'd be happy to run into this a lot, because that would mean we're getting a lot of cable down a lot of roads that maybe aren't up to 21st century standards. So I'll leave it there. I don't even know who to ask to jump in and give me an idea about that, but that's what I struggle with.
Anyone who wants to answer that, basically? Mr. Trainee?
Well, I think I just wanted to be clear that just as part of the comment by Councillor DeVitt, and make sure, I apologize if I'm not hitting this 100% on the nose, but talk about a few things that we do, not specifically just for utility companies, but for accommodating different uses on properties that may be affected by these land dedication issues. So, you know, it's been sort of said, you know, why, I can go through the explanation again, but why we do these things when we have the opportunity, you know, understanding that, you know, there may not be a immediate use for the property, but this council has been through a number of occasions where expropriation has happened, and there is a significant financial impact on the county and in relation to the taxpayer. And one of the reasoning behind our land dedication policies is there's a benefit. In this case, the landowner is going to benefit from being able to sell a portion of his property to Quadro in this case, but to anyone who makes a severance along a county road in the future. And so there's a benefit there. And part of the realization of that benefit is being a contributing member to society and the community as a whole. And we can demonstrate lots of reasons why we need the road allowance widening. Specifically in this case, for installation of things like broadband infrastructure, right? We have limited space within our right of ways. And the reason we take this extra widening is to allow for installation of underground infrastructure, which expands the service delivery to the benefit of everyone across Middlesex. The other thing that we should say is that there are times when we adjust these land dedication requirements in order not to have a significantly negative impact on the landowners. So for example, we would reduce the land dedication requirements required for these types of applications for keeping existing structures wholly within the retained parcel. So we don't, ask for a right to 18 meters. It was going to go through someone's front door, or front porch, or front living room. We also wouldn't do it where we would cause some undue hardship for someone to have to dig up a septic tank or a septic field and do a wholesale move for that. So we have reduced widening automatically. We have the power to do that at staff level, reduce that dedication requirement in order to preserve the wholesomeness of those properties. Because again, we know when buildings were built, 50, 100 years ago, certainly weren't to the sort of rigorous standards that we have today for planning and site plan and those types of things. The other thing that's important to note, and this happens across the county, and I've wholeheartedly supported this practice in my time with the county, and my predecessors have as well. Although the land would be owned by the county and part of the county road allowance, we certainly allow and encourage farmers to continue to farm that land. So although this farmer would be required to, on paper, dedicate that 3 meters of widening across their property, they certainly would continue and may at this point in time already be farming out into the county road allowance. We certainly allow that to happen to the sort of the backside of the road drainage ditch. In our opinion, it's best to maximize the potential of farming practices in Middlesex. And it's just an area that wouldn't be used other than at some point in time, maybe to put in some underground utility. But again, we permit and encourage farmers to continue to sort of maximize their tillable area and continue to work that land, even though certainly as part of the public highway, we wouldn't prevent that activity to happen on this parcel specifically or anywhere else. So just a few things. Councillor David, if I missed any part of your question, certainly be happy to expand on my answer.
Okay. Any follow-up, Councillor David? Okay. Councillor Kathy Burghardt-Jessen.
Thank you, and through the warden. Actually, most of the questions and concerns I have been raised by my colleagues, but I guess to just what Chris has brought up, I'm just wondering, has there been any offline discussions prior to this request coming to council between Quadro and our engineer? And I guess the question is there any option available to them where we could work with them?
Through the warden to Councillor Burghardt-Jessen, did have some conversations, and Quadro, and thanks to them and their staff for working with the local planner on this issue with Middlesex Center. Again, I just would remind council that Middlesex County isn't the approval authority for the consent. We would just provide comment, and that approval would come through Middlesex Center. So Quadro rightfully went to Middlesex Center about a year ago, I would say, to start the discussions on this. They're actually looking at a different piece of property at that time and looking to overcome some hurdles with planning, site area, setbacks of the building, land indication, those sorts of things. I did reach out personally, I think about a month ago, maybe a little bit less, again, to help facilitate this discussion today. But also, I think I bounced a couple of other options back to Quadro, and I don't pretend to understand what their business decision is or whether these options were previously exhausted. But again, we are trying here to work with Quadro and work with all of the broadband suppliers within Middlesex County. We recognize the importance of expanding broadband across our region and Ontario as a whole, and the importance of that for the health and well-being of our county as a place to live. So we are, again, trying to provide options and talk about alternatives here. I do sympathize and understand with Quadro with the time crunch with regards to the SWIFT applications and the deadlines for installation of infrastructure. But we are looking and again, trying to figure out a way out of this to try and get something that meets everybody's expectations.
Councillor Vanderheyden.
Two things if I could. Thank you, Madam Warden. Well, one, I just want to let everyone knows except maybe Quattro, I do sit on the SWIFT board, but it has nothing to do with this conversation. Just for transparency's sake, I do sit on that board, just so that's clear. Again, it has nothing to do with this conversation, but I just wanted to throw that out there. expropriation, in my opinion, is usually way more expensive and ridiculously so than when we do it in the first place. I mean, I have seen numbers come through over the years that it just shocked me. In my opinion, the people that are selling this property are already making money off of Quattro by selling a piece of property to you. So they're not losing anything other than a strip of meters in order to facilitate the building going in and wires going down underneath the road. So in my opinion, I don't think the people that are selling you the property are being very, I just don't think it's right that they're holding you hostage because of this particular issue. Chris, does the right of way have to go all the way from road to building or past the building, or can it just be in front of the building? Because that might be a solution where you only have the right of way taken in front of the Quattro building and not in front of the person's property where they have their, is that a house or is that a building of a,
yeah, through, and sorry to cut you off, Councillor Vanderheiden, but through the warden, I understand that the building on the corner is not part of this parcel. So the parcel is actually next to that building. I
thought I had a perfect solution there. Sorry.
The corner lot, that house there is not affected. It works in our discussion with the reduction of the setback for the building itself, because if there's already a building there, we don't worry that much about another building being a little bit closer to the road. But no, unfortunately, it's the land to the south across the farmer's field that we're talking about, where the land dedication would apply.
Okay. Mr. Waghorn and then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The comment by Councillor Vanderheiden was an interesting one in that that is somewhat what we were suggesting, in that take the 3 meters from the property that Quadro is purchasing, but at this point in time waive the requirement for the balance of the farmland that would be taken. The 2 other points just from comments that have been made. One, the county already owns 15 or maybe slightly over 15 meters of the 18 that is ideal at this point in time. So it's not that it would be the full road widening that would have to be expropriated at any time in the future. It would be a further 3 meters because there is already 15 in existence from a past expropriation. The other comment is that just the neighboring property that was identified there that does not belong to any of the parties involved here, there is absolutely no way they could go to 18 meters on that property without taking buildings out, because the buildings exist on the current, what would be 15 meter setback. So that's just a couple of other considerations. We're not talking a full expropriation for the whole widening at this point in time. It's a small portion that we're asking the county waive the requirement for. And just again, if we'd be happy to give the 3 meters off the piece we're buying, but it is an issue with the balance of the farm property, because it's likely more square meters that the farmer's giving up through that road widening than he's selling to us to use for the switch building in the first place. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Through the warden. My comments were going to be similar to what Councillor Vanderheiden was saying in regards to the property on the corner, but I did look up because I was just a little confused with that. So I was looking it up on the Middlesex County mapping and then realized that we're talking about the farmland. I understand what the request, and I understand the intent. However, in Allied Metcalf, when we have, say, a severance for a surplus farm dwelling, those requests are also coming as well, but we're not going to, that's not going to go to the county for that request, because we understand the benefit for the landowner, we understand all those things. Seeing that it is strictly farmland along the side, dedication along the county road, I don't see a problem with continuing on with the policy that we have in effect. we have a policies for, for reasons. I understand that there is possibilities to, have a waiver to, not proceed as the policy is, but it comes down to the policy and why it's there. And we also have to understand that, Quattro or, in the future, if, Hydro One, whatever it is, there's also the dedication of making sure we have enough room on our right of way for different utilities as well. So I personally, I don't think I wouldn't be able to support waivering that request for only having it for the severed parcel and not the entire severed and retained parcel.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I see Councillor Mayhew's hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Warden, very much. I share Councillor Smith's opinion as well. We have a fiduciary responsibility and we due diligence to not only protect our taxpayers during our term of office, but in the future as well. And I think deviating from our policy would jeopardize that philosophy. Wayne may wish to add into that. Wayne, I'm concerned about that fiduciary responsibility and our due diligence. The policy has worked in the past, and as I say, our ultimate goal, we're all sensitive to the need of fiber, but we also have to protect the future liability that may encumber our ratepayers. Any comment?
I would like to make a comment. I'm just wondering, the timeline that we're looking at, is there time to go back and have a staff report on this? Like, it's a shift in policy, but I also think that we're trying to support infrastructure throughout the county that provides broadband. So, is that a consideration?
Madam Warden, that was going to be my follow-up question, that if staff could meet with Quadra and our engineering and our legal meet together and find a way to resolve this dilemma. We know it's awkward, but that was the intent of my follow-up question, that to go back to staff and that we have engineering and legal present during those negotiations.
Okay, and maybe to Mr. Trainee, knowing that this is a priority for the county, is there timeline enough to be able to bring a staff report back?
To the warden, absolutely. I mean, we would have a staff report ready for next council.
Okay, all right.
Also move that, Madam Warden.
Alan, you're making
yes, I move that engineering and legal meet and staff get together and try to address the difference of opinion between the two proposals and the concerns, that they meet together and provide council with a report at the next council meeting.
Okay. Councillor DeVitt, did I see your hand up?
Oh, I was just going to say I'd make a motion to refer it back to staff with the direction to explore the project and see how we can make it work.
Okay. So I've got two people saying the same thing. So
yeah.
We have there will be a mover and a seconder. And before I call the vote, I just want to thank again Quadro for coming here today. I think these are worthwhile discussions, and in real time we can try and get solutions. And I think that's the best way to do it, is by sitting down and talking it out and figuring it out. So thank you, gentlemen, for taking your time to come here today. And so I've got a mover and a seconder. Is anyone against this? Seeing none, so moved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now I'm looking at the time, 1:54. Marcy, I'm going to let you call it. Shall I continue on, or should we wait for the hearing?
Chris, is the applicant in yet? Bailey, do you see? Maybe Chris isn't there.
No, I'm here. I'm here. For which one?
The applicant, Kevin McDougall, has he been signed on yet?
I have not seen him, no.
Okay, then you know what? It's 1:55. Let's move on to 11A3, the extension of the warden's term, administrative overview. And I believe our clerk is here and legislative services manager, same person, to give us the report.
Thank you, Warden Warwick. So at the January 11th meeting, staff was asked to prepare a report on the administrative process required to extend the term of warden from 1 to 2 years. As set out in the report, this is possible under Section 218 of the Municipal Act 2001. However, there are a couple of challenges for council to consider. The first is that because we are in an election year, if council did amend its procedural bylaw, the bylaw would not come into effect until the 2026 election. So the new council formed in December would still have that 1-year term. The second challenge is that if council relies on Section 218 to extend the term, it would also be required to comply with the remaining provisions of that section, which would require council to amend its representation bylaw to provide for representation of all local municipalities. So that is something to be mindful of as council considers this issue. We know that any amendments to our representation bylaw will require a triple majority. So we would need to plan and account for that process as well. The recommendation there is to receive the report for information, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Oh, Warden, you're muted.
Too many buttons. Councillor Vanderheyden, go ahead.
Leave yourself unmuted. You should be good.
No, you don't want that.
Thank you. Through the warden. Thank you for your report, Marcy. It was good to be able to read it and put all the pieces of the puzzle in place. I agree. I think I would actually like to make a motion that we accept the report and not make any governance changes for this term. And if the next term of office wants to make any changes for moving forward, we've had a lot of discussions. We've had a visioning session. We've had all kinds of opportunities. And I think it's time to say no governance changes till the next council makes a decision.
So that was a motion, Councillor. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Elliott? Okay, any discussion before I call this vote? Councillor, sorry, somebody's talking.
Marcy and I are both trying to talk, I think, at the same time about the same issue, I imagine.
Well, I saw your hand up, but I saw Marcy's voice, and I was wondering what was going on there for a minute.
We do sound alike most days.
Yeah, very much
yes,
so.
Yes, I have a little bit of a pitch.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Marcy, I don't know. I'll stand down if you want to say what I was going to say, but I was going to say we do have the notice of motion issue. You may want to handle this a little differently than having a negative vote. Maybe you want to have a vote about the positive of the notice of motion, and then the negative would be to vote it down, so to speak, because you already have that one moving forward. But Marcy, I'll let you figure that one out. But something's wrong procedurally here. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think I agree with Bill that we would need and probably notice of motion to say we're not making any governance changes in this term. When Councillor Brennan brought forward his motion at the last meeting, that motion was technically amended to be a report to staff. So now there's nothing on the table other than to receive this for information. And then you could bring a notice of motion about governance changes or to not make governance changes.
Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder for, I believe, for information and not moving forward.
We can't make an amendment to the recommendation because this is a recommendation. I thought you could make an amendment.
Okay,
sorry,
let me just go with my original question and then we'll figure it out, but just do it step by step or it gets too confusing. So I have a motion on the floor, and that was Joanne's motion not to move forward with that. If that motion is carried, then do we need a separate motion for no governance changes within this term, or do we do the no governance changes before the motion that's on the table? Enlighten me.
So go ahead, Bill.
I think the issue is the notice of motion requirement. That's what the issue Marcy and I are trying to say. It's the suddenness of this coming onto the agenda, and it's the notice of motion requirement, I think, or that piece that's causing us some heartburn. Marcy, do you want to add to that?
Well, I think, Councillor Vanderheyden, we could amend this motion, but I would say that that's a little outside of the scope of an amendment to say that we're not going to make any governance changes. That would be a bit outside of the scope of this motion and the original motion, to be fair.
And I see Councillor Smith's hand up.
Through the warden, just for clarification, when reading through the report, it seems like if we were making any changes, it wouldn't come into effect until 2026 term of council. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So to Councillor Vanderheyden's point, I believe all of us on council we all are on the understanding that we're not going to be making changes for the next term of council. So as long as we all just have the understanding that we're not going to bring it back up, and that next term of council, if they want to make a change, it will take effect in 2026. So I don't think it really is needed to be even in a motion, because we can't make changes for the next term of council because we passed that deadline.
So, Legislative Services Manager, what is your recommendation here? Councillor Elliott, do you have your hand up? Sorry.
I can pull my motion off the floor if it's okay with my other mover. That would be easy to do. But I just, with the understanding that, you know, I'm done with this conversation and I don't want to move it forward. And that's why I said that, because I thought I don't want this to come up again in the next month.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And I think Marcy clarified that in the fact that the notice of motion was amended, that it was only to come back to a staff report. So there was no further action. So now that the staff report's here, just receiving it for information, the topic is dead now. So I would be fine with just keeping it as, if that's what Councillor Vanderheyden has on the table, just to receive for information, I'm fine with that.
Councillor Vanderheyden? Yep, okay. Seconder, Councillor Elliott? Okay. So anyone against this? Okay, seeing none, and I must thank Councillor Brennan for an interesting notice of motion that gave us lots of time to think about our procedure. Thank you. And now I think we do have 2 o'clock, so we're going back to our hearing.
Still think
what was the name again, Marcy? I haven't seen anybody join. So.
We're still waiting, Warden. So maybe we can, Dirk, maybe you can help us figure out.
Well, we can move on to something else. I mean, I'm okay with that. And just
yeah, we just have to. We should, Dirk. Maybe you could help find when the person's going to be here.
Yes, I'll try to track them down right now.
Because I see Mr. Brown's here, so I just need the applicant.
Warden, if you want to move to 11A4, we can come back.
Yep, okay. So 11A4, Municipal Modernization Program, Procurement Service Delivery Review. And it's a report from Evian Hassan, Business and Data Analyst, Marilyn Brown. And I believe Ms. Hassan is with us. Welcome. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you to Council, today I will be providing another modernization project update for procurement services. So just a recap, on March 15th, 2021, the county submitted an application under intake 2 of Ontario's Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing's Municipal Modernization Project for the Joint Procurement Service Delivery Review. On June 30th, 2021, the county received a letter from Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, approving our 4 Municipal Modernization Program applications. So under the transfer payment agreement, the county is responsible for delivering the project under the following 4 conditions: the submission of an interim progress report to the province, the submission of an independent third-party reviewers report to the province, publishing the independent third-party reviewers report on Middlesex County's publicly accessible website, and lastly, the submission of the final report to the province. On October 21, the county contracted LXM Law LLP to conduct an unbiased, objective third-party review of procurement services for Middlesex County and the local municipalities, with a focus on improving efficiency and effectiveness.
You're on now? Okay, so you're...
On On January 31st, 2022, the county met all 4 conditions. I would like to now kindly pass it over to Marilyn from LXM Law to present their findings for the procurement service delivery review.
Thank you, Ebian. Chris, am I okay to share my screen with some slides?
Yeah, one sec. I'll make you co-host. There you go. It should be good.
Okay, thank you. Chris, can you see that?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Warden and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Marilyn Brown. I'm a partner at LXM Law. We're a small specialized law firm with a particular focus on public procurement law and government contracting. I've been practicing in this area throughout my career, first as in-house counsel at the City of Toronto Legal Department, and then in private practice, providing procurement law services to a range of public sector clients in Ontario and across Canada. So we very much enjoyed working with the county and the local municipalities throughout this review process. And I hope that our report provides useful recommendations to improve efficiency and effectiveness in your procurement operations. So I'm just going to quickly summarize some of the core findings and recommendations from the report, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So in terms of the core findings, through our review, we found that the county and all
about something else, and then they will come back to you right away, okay?
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We found that the county and all of the local municipalities have adopted a highly decentralized approach to managing procurement. And what I mean by that is that for the majority of procurements, it's individual departments that are conducting their own process for their own requirements with limited or no centralized procurement support services. We also found there was a lack of standardized procedures and templates. So all of the municipalities have council approved procurement policies, and those address important topics and establish the rules and roles and responsibilities. I think there are opportunities for improvement to those policies, some updating and streamlining to improve clarity and consistency. But I think the bigger issue is that outside of the policies, most of the municipalities, with some exceptions, don't have documented procedures, procurement document templates, standard contracts that can facilitate their day-to-day procurement opportunities, or sorry, their procurement operations. And thirdly, we also found that there's no documented framework or formalized process for coordinating and identifying opportunities for collaborative procurements. And so the county and the local municipalities are missing out on opportunities for that collaboration and the associated cost savings that could be realized through pooling resources and buying power. So the core challenges connected to the findings are the insufficient resources, inconsistent practices, and inefficient operations. Those all sound very negative, and I do want to say that through our review, we also found that staff is very dedicated and very knowledgeable about procurement and the governing rules, and are working very hard to ensure that procurement is done in a compliant and efficient manner. But these are the challenges that they're facing. And so despite being essential to the operation of a municipality, the procurement function is often under-prioritized and under-resourced, underfunded. This is something we see in other municipalities as well. And in this case, we're seeing that in the fact that there just aren't dedicated procurement specialists on staff to assist the operational departments with their procurement responsibilities. That decentralization and the lack of documented procedures and templates can lead to inconsistent practices. So there's inconsistency between the way different departments do their procurements and between the different municipalities within the county. That creates some risk, and it also frustrates suppliers who are trying to compete for opportunities and then encountering different documents and different practices each time. And then there's inefficiencies also stemming from that lack of support and the lack of standardized tools, because that's resulting in significant multiplication of effort, repetition of administrative tasks, which in many cases are being performed at a department head level. And the time that's currently being spent by the operational departments on those administrative aspects of procurement could be more appropriately allocated to their core responsibilities. So the core concepts that those findings revolve around are documentation, centralization, and standardization. And the relationship between those concepts underlies the recommendations in our report. And those recommendations are that county and the local municipalities adopt consistent governing policies, develop standardized procedures, tools, and templates, and establish centralized procurement services. So beginning with documentation, we've recommended that the county and the local municipalities adopt similar procurement policies so that the rules are consistent and that delegation of authority is made appropriately to staff for the day-to-day procurement activities. And then to support those policies, to also put in place standard procedures and templates to be used by the county and all of the local municipalities. In terms of centralization, we've recommended that centralized procurement resources be retained to provide support to the county and to the local municipalities. Specifically, we recommended hiring a procurement manager to deliver procurement services to the county's departments, as well as a procurement coordinator to provide shared procurement support services to the local municipalities. And then additional expertise for larger collaborative or high-risk procurements would be made available to the county departments and the local municipalities on an as-needed basis through the Middlesex County Barrister and Solicitor's Office, or obtained externally if necessary by that office to ensure that there is consistent delivery of procurement services to the county departments and to the local municipalities. And situating those shared resources at the county will facilitate coordination and interaction with county legal, and can mirror aspects of the existing shared IT services model, which we understand is quite successful. Standardization is going to come from having those consistent policies and procedures and the dedicated procurement resources so that they're assisting the county's departments and the local municipalities conduct procurement in a consistent manner. Standardization is going to facilitate collaboration. If you're all doing things in a similar way, then it's much easier to come together and collaborate on joint or group procurements, which in turn is going to maximize competition by pooling your buying power and getting more competitive bids. Standardization is also going to enhance compliance by having policies and procedures that comply with your public procurement obligations and the centralized resources to support those. You'll ensure that the consistent practices are compliant with your obligations and thereby minimize your risk in your procurement operations. Standardization is going to improve productivity and increase efficiency by doing away with the multiplication of effort and some of the repetition in those tasks. And all of those things taken together are going to help to reduce your costs. And so with maximum competition, minimum risk, and cost reductions, all of those come together to serve to optimize your procurement outcome. So that is a high level kind of overview of what's in the report that has been provided to you. And I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Brown, and thank you, Mrs. Ann. That was a very clear and concise report. I I just, there we go. Now I can see everybody again. Has anybody got any questions regarding the content of this report? Nope, seeing none. Any comments? No. All right, so we're going to ask for, Councillor DeVitt, will you?
Yes, I just thought of one thing. This structure wouldn't prohibit leveraging the opportunities through something like LAS, which is the Ontario Buying Group for Municipalities through AMO. Or is that? Yes, go ahead. Yeah. I'm just wondering, there's no reason that.
I don't have an answer for that one, Ms. Brown, so we're relying on you for that one.
Yeah. Okay, through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor DeWitt. It would not. And actually, I think what we're hoping is having those additional resources would assist in facilitating participation in some of those buying groups and coming together. So collaborating not only with each other, but with those larger groups that exist, and having someone take a lead on that would help you make better use of those possibilities.
Thank you. This is perfect. It's a great report. I'll echo the warden's comments on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I see anybody else's hand up? Councillor Vanderheyden.
And thank you through the warden. I think it's anytime we can modernize the way we do business, except maybe if we put everything in the cloud, and I never know where the cloud is or where it's moving to. That's my only issue. But anyway, so I thought I'd get Chris laughing at that one. But I think then it's good for us to do that kind of a thing. So thank you.
Okay. So then I'm gonna ask for someone to move that this report be received for information. Councillor Robb, seconded by Councillor Richards. Any other discussion? Anyone against this? Seeing none, so moved. Thank you again, ladies, for your report.
Thank you.
And I see that we have all parties needed for the hearing. So we're going to go back in time here. And I'm going to ask that the Committee of Whole convene a public hearing pursuant to the Middlesex County Woodlands Bylaw 5738 at 2:17. And now we're going to have the hearing for the application for the council exemption. Oh, do I need a mover for moving into the hearing? Yep. So can I have a mover, please? Thank you. Councillor Vanderheyden, seconded by Councillor Brennan. All in favor? Or against? Sorry, just trying to make sure everybody's paying attention. And now we have the hearing for the application for the council exemption for clearing Woodlands, Municipality of Middlesex Centre, Concession 6, Lot 15, 14501 Medway Road. Mr. Ken McDoodle operating as Comgord Limited. So I am now looking for the staff report for that. And who's bringing that forward?
Thank you, Madam Warden.
Mr. Brown.
Mark Brown, County Woodlands Officer. Good afternoon, Council, and to the applicant as well. So just a quick summation of my report. I think councillors should all have my report and the attachments. As previously stated, the application is for a property at 14501 Medway, which is just immediately east of the Ava School, Ava Village. The application is to clear 2.46 acres of woodland, and the woodlands, the total area of the woodlands on the subject property amount to 42 acres, so it would be 2.46 acres of a 42-acre woodland on the property. The woodlands on this property are part of a slightly larger complex of 51 acres where it crosses the property boundaries. So quite a decent little woodland. They are classified as significant woodlands in the Middlesex Natural Heritage Systems Study 2014. The clearing area comprises mature Carolinian woodlands, zone woodlands, established well before 1955 because they show up as mature woodlands at that date on 1955 air photos. The species composition is primarily hard maple, some soft maple, poplar near the wetlands, beech, basswood, American basswood, and in the understory, along with the normal composition of young maple, ash, and all of the other native species, there is a complex of some native hawthorns and some buckthorn, European buckthorn, which has crept in and colonized where the canopy gaps are a little bit larger. That is quite common in the London area. Unfortunately, it was introduced in the City of London area, and it's spread mostly via bird droppings. They spread the seeds. They like to feed on the seeds, and they spread them around. So it hasn't ventured too far out into the county yet, which we're very pleased about, but it is quite common in the London area. So the clearing area that's been applied for would comprise about 6% of the woodlands on the subject property. So fairly small percentage. But the area identified is adjacent to some wetlands, that are classified by Ministry of Natural Resources. And it's also an area which is regulated by the Conservation Authority. The applicant has indicated that they do not wish to replant an equivalent area on this subject property, which means therefore that this application does not comply with County Council's no net loss policy. And as a result of that, staff cannot support the application. We've received some comments, both from the Upper Thames, and in essence, the Upper Thames, they're not here to speak to their comments, but I think your councillors have them before you. The woodlands are in the Conservation Authority regulated lands, and also they regulate the wetlands. And they've stated in their comments that the proposed clearing would require permits from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. And as a result of that, if the applicant wished to go ahead with applying for permits from Upper Thames, an environmental impact study report would be required as a first step. Other comments that we received was pretty much, I think, in summation, a fairly standard reply from Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, in which they state that if the council was willing to permit the clearing of these woodlands, the applicant should make a preliminary screening application to MECP before they proceeded. And I think that would wrap up well with the Conservation Authority requirements. And that, I think, is the end of staff report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. And I see that Mr. McDougall is here, and I assume that's his technological support sitting beside him.
My son, of course.
That's very nice. Welcome. I'm glad you were able to come. I'm sure you've learned everything about procurement and everything you ever want to know about that. So you got a bonus. You got a bonus as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it is time for you, if you wish to make some statements. The floor is yours, Mr. McDougall. So go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. So all we're Sorry, can you hear
That's
me
okay.
now?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. You're good. Yep.
Is it possible to share the screen just so I can show a picture?
I think so. Yep.
Okay.
You've been granted, Chris.
I have now. Yep.
Yep.
It should be good now. Yep.
Yep. There you go.
Okay. Sure. Here. So I'll just continue while he does that. So there is, I don't know if you can see that, but we obviously farm this land, we share crop it with Arbor Grain Corp. And currently we farm 44 of 108 acres. So there's not a whole lot that's farmed. So what we're looking at doing, what we were hoping to do was square off a field, which is, can you point to where I'm talking about? Square off that field so that we can just get equipment in and actually turn it at the end of the field so we can use the larger equipment. Over the years, of course, farming equipment's got larger and larger, and to bring it down to a point makes it pretty difficult to use. So that really was the purpose of doing this. If we can flip to the second picture, Sean. This is very short. This is an old aerial photograph. I don't know if it's the same one that Mr. Brown discussed, but it's an old photograph. You can see how much was woods in those days and how much is filled in. The yellow line actually is where the woods sit now. So, you know, my discussion about replanting, I think over the years it's naturally replanted by itself. So, and we truly don't have a whole lot of land to be farmed. It really hasn't been well taken care of as a farm. It's been good for you know, letting the trees grow back. So basically we want to do you know, to cut that back and you know, and just farm, be able to turn the equipment around. As far as the Upper Thames goes, you know, with all due respect to them, you know, I know they're underfunded. They can't be everywhere, and they draw lines using aerial photographs, and it's hard to see the ground. If anybody's walked out there, I'm sure a few people have walked through Weldon Park onto my farm into the woods. You know, that part's very high and it falls off to that man-made drain. So. You know, I'm not too concerned other than the process with Upper Thames, but because I personally know that part's very dry. It's just a matter of getting more fields. So that's really probably all I have to say.
The main thing is, if I flip back to here, just getting it why we want to square it off so we can turn the farm equipment and farm the land. Over time, farm equipment's gotten bigger and it's started to grow in, and it's just a very narrow right here, and it's just starting to be impossible to actually farm the land. Stop share.
All right. Well,
any questions, or I can.
Well, thank you, Sean, for being that person to get that all through for us. Council,
technology, we always learn more.
It's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Council, does anybody have any questions for Mr. McDougall? I don't see any. And then, so I would say that looking at, was there any submissions from any other members of the public, Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Madam Warden. No, we didn't receive anything else from members of the public.
Okay, and any other comments on, I think you did comment on the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority written submissions already?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So the public part of our meeting is over, and I'd like to now ask any other questions from council or any, yep, Councillor Vander Hayden.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. When I looked at the pictures and read the description of what this is, and it actually is a Carolinian, mature Carolinian forest. And I think that's something that's very unique to our area. And I prize that. I think it's absolutely essential that we continue to keep that in play. The recommendation in the report was to deny because of no replanting opportunities. And I think that put the stamp on my decision. I think if we don't replant and we take Carolinian forest down, I think then we're not doing we're doing a disservice to our county, and that was the whole purpose of having a policy to replant things. Is if we take something out, we need to put something back. And you know, climate change is on our doorstep. It's right here, and if we continue to take, I agree with farming. I love farming. I think farmers are amazing, just so you know that. But that's 2.46 acres that comes in a corner, and I could see how you would then be able to take a tractor around there, but you know, that's not really squaring a field off. That's just making room for a tractor. It's not like it's shrub, and it's something that isn't going to regenerate in a nice way. So I'm not in favor of this particular request.
Okay, Councillor Burkhart-Jessup.
Great, and thank you through the warden. I echo what Councillor Vander Hayden has just said. I guess I do have one question though. Is there opportunity for the applicant to plant somewhere else besides what's in front of us? And could that be an option on the table? And I don't even know if the applicant would be interested in that, if that's something else, if that's something that we've done in the past. But is there opportunity for that condition to be met somewhere else?
It could be. I mean, my preference would not be, because simply we've probably, well, since that old era photograph, we've probably had 10, 15 acres grow in of more trees and more Carolinian forest. So, I think we've met that. We've met that in the past, maybe not going forward, but I think we've met that in the past by allowing the trees to grow. Now, if that's the only way we can do it, we can, to get the field, we'd certainly consider it or probably do that. I don't know where I would do it unless I don't know if there's
county lands that you can do it, or Middlesex lands somewhere that you plant on, because that's their only land.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that was going to be my follow up, Warden. But I guess my question to Mr. Brown: would there be ability to work with the applicant to have those trees planted somewhere else in the county, and it would still be replacement?
Through the Warden, thank you, Kathy. That's a really good question. I guess simplistically, the county doesn't have an inventory of unforested lands, as far as I'm aware, that would be a candidate for that kind of replanting. So the county doesn't have that kind of inventory of open land that could be planted. Not sure if any other organizations might have. I think CA are probably, the conservation authorities, probably in a similar boat, in that most of the conservation lands have been planted up over several years. Yeah, I think that I'm not too sure if I can answer that comprehensively at this point.
Okay, Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Elliott, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Warden. Question for Mark Brown. So the recommendation is to be denied, but if the applicant was to replant, you would be then in support of this application, just to be clear? If they were to replant, the recommendation would be for approval. Is that my understanding?
That's a really good question. I guess that the checks and balances really they're all done before we bring these kind of reports to council, in terms of the candidate area for replanting. So we would have a look at those and make sure that the woodlands, the new woodlands, are going to be properly protected and are going to provide equivalent habitat, etc., to the overall sort of woodlands ecosystems on the farm. So to answer your question, in absence of that kind of discussion and planning and scoping out, would be a little premature on my part. So I can't really answer your question at this point in time, but we can certainly revisit that if the applicant is willing to look at an area on the farm they're willing to replant, but if not, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Elliott.
Yes, through you, the Warden. I agree with Councillor Burghardt-Jessen's suggestion. I understand where the applicant is coming from and the fact that, and I just pulled it up on Google Maps as well, there's not really anywhere else on that property to put another 2.5 acres of replanting. So I understand where he's coming from in terms of that specific property, but I would be interested in seeing if there's any way to work with the applicant and in discussions with either the Conservation Authority, if they have areas that need trees. I know, and even with our lower tier municipalities, I know in Thames Centre, we're always looking for trees in order to plant in our parklands and things like that. And so I'm wondering if there's kind of that creative solution we can have. And so I would almost, and I always hate referring things back to staff, but to kind of throw this one back to staff and see if there's a way that we can work with the applicant to make this work.
Councillor Keeling, I saw your hand up, and then Councillor Mayhew.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. I just in reading the Thames Valley, Upper Thames Valley Conservation Report, they also have denied the applicant his permission to clear this property. So regardless of where the county position is, would they still not need approval from the Upper Thames Conservation Authority as well?
Mr. Brown?
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, councillor, they would require permits from Upper Thames. So even if the county approved it, they would have to obtain permits from Upper Thames. And that would include conducting an environmental impact study. And then the ecological consultants can, they can put forward the checks and balances that, certain species are present and this is good, this is bad, for the environment and that sort of thing. They can go through that whole process.
Would it be fair to say that a staff report may be a little bit premature then, without the participation from the Upper Thames?
I don't believe so, no. Through your worship, I think we've always conducted our public hearings this way, and we're always looking for these comments from the other regulatory authorities.
Sorry, Mark, I think he was referring to the idea of finding a new location for the planting of trees as a report in terms of referring it back. I think that's what you meant, right, Adrian?
What I meant was, like, without consent from the Upper Thames, would a staff report not be premature? That's what I meant.
I'll let Mr. Brown think about that one for a second. And then I'll go to Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you very much, Madam Warden. Coming from Southwest Middlesex, I have a great affinity for Carolinian forests, but I sympathize with the applicant in this, and they are the stewards of our forests, and I think they too have an affinity for wooded lands. When I look at that V formation of these two woodlots, it is getting tight in there, and over a course of time, they're going to merge. And as history has shown, they have lost land over the last several decades due to the migration of the forest floor coming out. And I think his request is modest in terms of the responsibility he has of being the custodian of that forested area. And I too like to see the replacement of trees when they're cut down, and I think that's an avenue that should be pursued. If there's not, if the land parcel obviously cannot accommodate it, but even things like the Talbot Land Trust or Ducks Unlimited or something like that, where a financial compensation could be made in lieu of planting trees, it will benefit the ecosystem and not take away from it, but replace the venue at some other location for some other benefit. So I'm not quite as adverse to this as some of my fellow councillors. I think the request is modest in nature, and in respect to those who look after our forests, I think I'm somewhat sentimental towards the applicant's request.
I think. Okay, and I know that Councillor DeVete, did you have your hand up? Okay, and then Councillor Ropp, and then Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Warden. Through the Warden, a couple of comments, and one is we're just dealing with what's in front of us here today, and our policies tell us that we can't approve this with no replanting. One caution I would make that if we allow the replanting on our municipal land, I can assure you there'll be a lot of farmers who would be willing to clear some bush and plant some trees on municipal property. So that's a bit of a slippery slope, to be perfectly honest. I think it is, with the application that we have in front of us, I think I'm not in favor of approving it. I'm in favor of what staff is recommending. Maybe there is something that can be worked out coming off of this with Mr. Brown and the McDougals, that would be great. But with what's in front of us here today, I think that's what we have to deal with, and I cannot support their application.
Okay, Councillor DeVete.
Thank you, Warden. I don't want to repeat everything everyone said. I think where we're at now is the application as it was presented to us today. We have a recommendation and we have the reports from the Conservation Authority and everybody. The package is complete, I believe. If the proponent would like to move forward with this, I think it's sort of starting again and saying, okay, if we're going to plant something, where can we plant it? And that would bring in our forester again. Mr. Brown could weigh in, and the Conservation Authority obviously would have to weigh in too. And then we would have that new information before us if they decide they want to move forward with replanting and how that would work on the property, or exploring other options as presented by, for example, Councillor Elliott and so on. So I don't think there's any confusion about what is in this report. The question is, I guess, whether the residents would like to move forward with a new plan.
Okay, Councillor Elliott. Okay. So I am hearing, I'm like, the report looked pretty cut and dry when it was in front of us, right? It basically, Mark indicated that Mr. McDougall was not willing to replant, and Upper Thames was not in favor. So we've had 2 no's on that. Now, having said that, we did talk to Mr. McDougall, and he was, it sounded to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that you might have some other ideas going forward.
Well, sure. I'm happy to plant trees somewhere else, or as suggested, give a donation to Upper Thames or Ducks Unlimited or some other organization that does this. We don't want to cut down the woods. We're not looking to clear cut. We're trying to make the farm more functional. So my problem with planting more trees on the farm is it really, we have very little farmland compared to the farm itself. We're 40% of the farm is planted, and the rest is woodlot and streams. So we are stewards of the land. We provide a park that half the part of the people in Arva enjoy. They walk through Medway or through Weldon Park, and then through our farm, through our woods every day. So it's something that we support. If I can plant trees somewhere else, I'd certainly do that. I'd be happy to talk to Upper Thames. I know there's a lot of talk about Upper Thames lines. That to me, that isn't a big thing, because I know we're well above the water line. They just don't have the staff to go down every creek in the township. So that I'm very comfortable with. So yes, I would supply other trees.
All right, and then I just want to state that we know farmers are good stewards of their land, and there is sometimes that thing, oh, they want to just have land, but we know that we're more educated than that. So I just think it might be appropriate to stop talking about it now and take it back and start the conversation, and just to see if there's any possibilities. So I'm just wondering if anybody would support that. Councillor Burkhart-Jessen.
Thank you, Warden. I guess just to clarify what you're asking, because Councillor DeVete brought up a point that if we're going to vote on the merits of the report as it is today and what's in front of us, I don't believe it can be supported. Councillor Elliott spoke to what I brought up, and certainly Mr. McDougall has said he's open to that. So, but Councillor Elliott has suggested deferring it back. So I guess I'm wondering what you are suggesting, whether it's voting on the report and then leaving it in Mr. McDougall's hands to go back and have those conversations, or deferring it back and to see if those conversations can happen offline between our staff, the applicant, and perhaps Upper Thames.
So maybe Mr. Brown, could you verify if we go back to this, if let's say we deny this report today, and would Mr. McDougall have to reapply? Is there any cost to that?
So thank you, Your Worship. So I guess just sort of thinking this through while discussions were ongoing. I think council could choose to defer the decision, but I don't think that would be correct under these circumstances. I think, as Councillor DeVitt summarised, the report before council is fairly straightforward, I think, in the recommendation, and the there's been the recommended denial from Upper Thames. Having said that, the council could vote on it, and then the applicant could go back, get their reports, get permits from Upper Thames, all that kind of stuff, and then staff would bring back a fresh report, and that would be based on new facts, all new facts, all the supporting information, supporting permits, etc., etc. I think that would be the cleanest way to deal with it. And as far as costs are concerned, the costs, as far as the county council is concerned, it's only $100. It's a $100 fee to reapply, but there would be costs associated with preparing reports that are needed to obtain permits from Upper Thames. So there would be, those costs, but I think they're before the applicant in any case, whichever way it goes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Council, what are your wishes? Councillor Vanderheyden.
And I'll make the recommendation that we support the denial in the report, and then go from there.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Ropp, any against? Okay, all right, so carried. And Mr. McDougall, it sounds like there's an ongoing conversation with this, so hopefully we'll see something in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to.
Do you need a motion to come out of public?
Yeah, I just had to find my piece of paper.
Okay.
So now I'm going to have Councillor Vanderheyden making a motion that the public hearing adjourn at 2:47 p.m. and the regular session of committee resume. A seconder. Councillor Burkhart Jessen, and no one against. And so we're moving on. All right, so into 11B action items, and that would be the revised 2022 Middlesex County Council and Library Board meeting calendars. And Marcy, I think this is your report.
Thank you, Warden. So this report is an updated meeting calendar for both council and library board. The Ontario Good Roads Conference was moved to April, and the new dates conflict with our April 12th meeting. So we have moved the meeting from the 12th to April 5th. And we have also canceled, or proposing to cancel, the November 23rd meeting as the new term of council begins on November 15th. With respect to the library board, we moved some dates around there as well. The June meeting was moved to August, and we're proposing to move the November and December meetings up again because of the election timelines. So the recommendation is for council to approve the updated calendars, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, asking for a mover. Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Anyone against? So moved. So now we're into 11B2, Temp Center Official Plan Amendment, number 22, Southside Property Group, file number 39 TC0PA22, and this is Dirk's report. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the warden. Of course, you'll see there are two reports that are similar, although not identical, but I'll just spend a little bit more time on the first one and less on the next. So this is amendment number 22 would change the designation of the property from an agricultural to an extractive industrial OP layer, and that would allow a licensed sand and gravel pit. It's commonly referred to as the Pike Pit, and it's on Gore Road, County Road 25. It's a 50-acre, 20-hectare property. The material in support of it indicates that they would be going below the water table, and therefore at the end there would be an 11-hectare pond with some table land around it. The policy analysis, the provincial policy statement, county's official plan, and Temp Center's official plan all take a similar approach. in that they do allow aggregate extraction as an interim use in the agricultural area. And where that occurs below the water table, it's obviously not returned to farmland. There is a parallel process through the Aggregate Resources Act with the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry. And they're in the middle of that process, and they're kind of the planning part is will dovetail into that. The environmental work completed in support of the amendment and does establish the setbacks, et cetera, that would be included in the ARA license. And the Conservation Authority have raised no objection, and their technical comments would be addressed through the ARA process. So in the end, I did come to the conclusion that that the OPA 22 is supportable. It's consistent with the provincial policy statement and would conform with the county and Thames Centre's official plan.
Okay, thank you. We have a recommendation in front of us. We have a mover. Yep, Councillor Vanderheyden, seconded by Councillor DeVete. Any discussion, questions before we move on? Nope, seeing none. Anyone against this application? So moved. Now moving on to 11B3, Thames Centre Official Plan Amendment number 23, Alan Payne and AK Farms Limited, file number 39TC-OPA 23. And Dirk, it's you again.
Thank you. Through the warden. This is just about right around the corner from the previous site. Again, agricultural to extractive industrial. And this is called the Payne Pit, and it's located on County Road 2, right where Cobble Hills Road comes out. The primary difference in this application, although it is larger, it is 66 hectares, 160 acres in total. But the material indicates that it is not going below water table, and therefore it would be returned to an agricultural after use. So with that one exception, the policy context is similar. Again, they're working their way through the ARA licensing with the ministry, and the Conservation Authority have raised no objection. So I did come to the same conclusion that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms with the county and local official plan.
Thank you. Any mover? Is that Councillor DeVete? Do a question.
Thank you. Through you to the Dirk, I was wondering, why would the ministry grant permission to extract, even though there is no plan to do so below the water table?
Through the warden, in this case, there's it's a higher area, so there's enough material of commercial value, as I understand it, above the water table that they strip the topsoil, they extract, and then they put the topsoil back. And I think the wording is substantially the same capability of agricultural land, sort of pre and post.
Okay, thank you. 1.2 million is a lot, so I get it now. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, any other questions? Okay, looking for a mover. Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Corneliuson. Anyone against? So moved. Okay, and now we have 11B4 mileage allowance, human resource policy 2.10. And Jessica, I believe that report is yours. Jessica's off the screen.
Yeah, I'm just checking, Warden. I think, well, as you know, we have union negotiations going on today.
Do you want to take this report?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Just let me pull it up. I was just trying to find her for a second, so I got to pull it up. So what I asked Jessica to do, and what we generally do every once in a while, is take a look at where we are from a CRA perspective with our mileage. One of the things that Jessica had to consider in this report was that it was difficult to figure out an exact dollar amount, excuse me, for what the impact would be on council. As you know, Warden, it's been an unusual 2 years from a mileage perspective, and that resulted in us having to estimate a little differently what the impact would be of any mileage changes. So what she did is she looked at it a couple different ways and tried to figure it out based upon average and based upon the last couple years as well. And so she's recommending that we move closer to that reasonable rate that's established by CRA. To remind you what the reasonable rate is based upon, that is certainly council is able to, or any organization is able to go above that CRA reasonable rate. But at that point, that amount would become taxable. So basically, this is what the CRA is saying would be a rate that is actual use cost for a vehicle. And anything above that needs to be taxable. So in light of the inflation that's happened in this area, Jessica's recommending that we move closer to that CR rate, and she's given an amount there that she's proposing that we move to. And the idea, oh, there she is. The idea would be that we would do that as of February 8th, which would be today.
I think that covers it. I saw Jessica come back in, but if you say she's in union negotiations.
No,
Council,
she just popped in for a second there. I saw her too, but
yeah, I think she's gone again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions regarding this report? Okay, so then looking for a mover.
Yeah, the only other thing I didn't add, Warden, sorry, I know I interrupted you. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I'll just ask for Councillor Ropp had his hand up as a mover, and seconder is Councillor Mayhew, and Mr. Rayburn, if you want to continue, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add one more thing that council normally asks, and I didn't mention is, do we have this captured in our budget for next year? And Cindy and I have talked about it, and yes, we do. So you don't have to think of this as an add-on to the budget that'll be coming forward.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move in a seconder. Councillor Smith, did you have a comment?
I did, Warden, through you to Bill, I guess. Is there a reason or why we're having it dated at this date and not retroactive back to January 1st of this year?
Yeah, we did talk about that. I think Cindy, maybe you can help me, but I think we talked about it being an accounting issue. Maybe I just had that conversation with Jessica and we didn't talk about it, Cindy, but I remember thinking that it's just a little easier to do from an accounting perspective than to go back and retrofit everything back. So that's why.
Through the warden to the councillor, absolutely. Is what Mr. Rayburn said. It was just a lot easier to start as at this date versus going back, because we'd have a lot of paperwork to do and we'd have to do accounting entries to clear it up.
Any other questions? I'm going to call the vote. Anyone against? Seeing none, so moved. Now moving on to correspondence and information items. So we've got 11C1 all the way through to 11C11. Any questions concerning any of those payments? If not, I'm looking for a mover to accept those payments as presented. Yeah, Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Anyone against? Councillor Vanderheyden?
I'm voting against.
Okay, so carried. And then moving now on to 11C12, and we have correspondence and some different reports all the way up to 11C26. I think there was a letter from Middlesex Soil and Crop Improvement Association regarding Strathmore Lodge Walkway, and I see Brent's on the screen. I just don't know if you wanted to bring anything for our enlightenment as far as that goes.
Sorry, Warden.
That's okay.
Just to comment, the Middlesex Soil and Crop Association is saying that they will no longer do volunteer work for us. And this is big gardens that we have at the rear of a couple of our resident home areas. So we've been fortunate in the past in having volunteer work done to maintain those grounds. But as you can see from the letter, they're no longer able to do so. So we have put in additional maintenance hours in the 2022 budget to do the work in-house. There is collective agreement language that prohibits us from, for example, contracting this out to someone.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Smith?
Yes, through the warden. I was actually going to address this one as well. I was just wondering if we could send a letter from council thanking the Soil and Crop Association for their volunteering and helping out at Strathmore Lodge over the last number of years.
I think that seems like an appropriate thing to do. Do we need a motion for that, or is it just something that you can take care of, Marcy? Yeah. Okay. So I think that's
Sorry, no motion, just I can send it.
Okay. And Adrian, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I had a question for Cindy, actually, on the report from the Deputy City Manager on the housing with Odell John, the social housing provider. And I read through the whole presentation, but my understanding is that these units are then in addition to LMCH housing units, and that this is a unique or a contract with the city itself. Is that how that works, Cindy?
Through the warden to the councillor. Yes, that is how I read that. You're talking about the affordable versus the social housing, I believe is what this report is referring to. So I read through the report as well, and from what I could read, it's talking about City of London properties versus the county properties. However, we do have an upcoming meeting with the Management Oversight Committee, and maybe this is something that we can include on there, Councillor Cornelius.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other items for discussion there? Okay, so looking for a mover. Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor DeVete. Anyone against? Seeing none, we're going to move on now to inquiries. Any inquiries? No. New business. I did get a message that we need to go into closed session. So the portion of the meeting will be closed to the public at 3:02 p.m. in order to consider a property matter and a human resources matter pursuant to sections 2392A and D. Looking for a mover to go into closed session. Councillor Richard, seconded by Councillor Burkhart Jessen. Anyone against? Okay, and